website and the Governor Prince redevelopment plan. So, other than that, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 300 to approve the minutes. So as you'll recall, at last month's meeting, we did have guests from Terry Barron and from the Community Development Partnership, and Hadley Luddy from the Homeless Prevention Council, and talked to us about the, as part of the ADU Resource Center and Lower Cape Housing and ADU Resource Center. And it was a very informative discussion, and it was agreed that it might be a good idea to have George Meservey, the Director of Planning and Community Development, come to this meeting and just to give us an update on the ADU zoning and bylaws in Orleans, and then while he's here, update us on any other anticipated zoning changes that we may be facing. So welcome, George. It's always great to have you be with us, and look forward to your presentation and
Thank you.
discussion.
Yeah, I miss attending the Affordable Housing Committee
Yeah,
meetings.
I miss
I'm
you.
sorry, we haven't met yet.
Oh,
Susan Carlson.
Hi, George Meservey, nice to see you.
You.
So I'm not completely privy to everything you talked about, but, so let me give you the basic primer of accessory dwelling units in Orleans, so you kind of have a feel for what's allowed. 90% of the land mass of Orleans is zoned single-family residential only. There's a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement. Within that, the town has made probably a half dozen changes to the way we allow accessory dwelling units over the last 15 years. There have been some minor changes, but presently they are allowed by right up to 800 square feet, no special permit, go right to the building commissioner, get a permit. It's complicated in Orleans because there is a nutrient management bylaw that limits development on a lot to one bedroom per 10,000 square feet, so 4 per acre. So if a house has 3 bedrooms on an acre, it has the space to put in an accessory dwelling unit. But if it's over that, it does not. The planning board reduced the minimum lot size required for an accessory unit down to 30,000 square feet. And they may in the future reduce that even to a half acre, to 20,000 square feet in areas that have public sewers. Because the purpose of the nutrient management regulations is to protect the environment and to limit the increase in nitrogen loading to groundwater that will ultimately have to be removed from our groundwaters through sewering. So once there are public sewers in place, that environmental protection is in place, and we could allow accessory units on smaller lots. That has not taken place yet. The sewer system is not operational yet either. So, what I gave you, I handed you out some work done by the Cape Cod Commission very recently, probably a year or two ago. November 21. And if you look at that matrix, Orleans is pretty much, allows pretty much everything without special requirements. We do not have deed restrictions that are required. We do have a requirement that in an accessory unit, either that unit or the main house is occupied by the owner. So you can't have a house that just becomes strictly a 2-unit rental property. And that was for protection of neighborhoods ostensibly. There is one correction under Orleans. When you go to lease duration restriction, that was actually reduced to 90 days. The planning board, in its wisdom, thought if someone wanted to have an accessory unit solely for the purpose of bringing in summer help, that they could do that. So a summer-only rental would be allowed in an accessory apartment. And that the apartment can be part of an existing dwelling or detached or up above the garage. Any of those things are allowed, subject to all the building codes, et cetera. So I don't know if there were specific questions about this. I'm glad to talk about it. I know in Provincetown and other areas, there's been discussion about providing financial incentives, not just through the CDP. I am not aware of towns that have actually gone through with specific incentives, but I'll note with the cost of construction, the incentives have to be significant to make any real dent to put someone over the top where they would want to put in an accessory unit presently. So,
Didn't the Housing Assistance Corporation have a program where they offered $1,000 for people to put in an ADU?
I think you're most of the way there. They offered $1,000 for anyone who created a rental property,
Rental property?
regardless.
Oh, okay, even if it
but
was
it's-
in their own home.
Yeah, and $1,000 is be nice cash, but it's, it pales compared to the real estate value, certainly,
course.
cost of construction.
I think the ADU new group with the money that came from Sarah Peak, they are going to have a much more significant amount of money available for subsidy.
Right.
But still, that pales with regard to how much it costs.
It would seem that the next step, and maybe it's really a regional study, is to determine where's the threshold at which it would be cost-effective? What does the program have to provide in a subsidy to be effective for people? And I don't know what that number is, but I don't think it's $10,000 for a
Right.
dwelling unit.
And there have been inquiries in Orleans, we understand.
You know, Orleans has averaged one or two accessory units a year until we allowed the detached unit, and that became a little more attractive. And I would say we were between 2 and 5 units per year, never a lot. This is not a component of, this is a component of answering our housing need. This is not the answer, certainly. I think when you look at, what it costs to get into a single-family house today, somebody who's buying a new house in Orleans for $1 million plus doesn't necessarily want to share the property with unrelated people. So most of the accessory units we've seen have gone in for family,
Okay.
and sometimes it's for generational differences.
Have there been actual completion of ADUs or just mostly
Oh, yeah.
inquiries? So there have
Right.
been.
Yes, and I can tell you, there was a requirement that for an annual affidavit demonstrating that one of the units was rented on an annual basis, that, to my knowledge, I've never seen such an affidavit filed by any owner of an ADU in Orleans.
Okay.
So we took that out of the program now. We're just trying to produce the housing units. I think the housing units are more important than the regulations, and the more obstructions there are, the less likely that they will be any more popular.
George, is there it says there's 800 square feet maximum size. Is there a minimum size?
No.
No.
No. I believe there probably is a minimum dwelling unit size under the building code for habitation.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what that number is.
Would it be helpful to track these? How many do we have, and would it be possible to track them? What's the mechanism that would have to be in place to do that?
You track them through the building department at the permit stage, and we spoke to the building department about that last fall, about this time probably. Maybe we had a similar conversation. And I have not seen any output on that, but I will check on that.
I mean, I just think it would be interesting they're not going to be on our affordable housing inventory per se. But it would be interesting to know how many housing units the town is producing
Right.
in this category.
Yes.
We track it for seasonal and year-round, so there are ways we do track.
Yes, the seasonal versus year-round is a personal property tax note at the assessor's level.
It works.
Yeah, right. Let me check on that. So if you want, I'll tell you what's new. New in zoning, this is very exciting for me.
Okay. Sure.
So under the accessory dwelling unit category, presently, a town allows panhandle lots that don't have sufficient frontage, just a little dog leg going into the lot. And the zoning bylaw says that those are limited to one single-family dwelling. So you have a nice robust 40,000 square foot lot with just a driveway, no frontage. The planning board has thought that the need for housing outweighs the need to keep that restriction. So they've asked me to prepare a bylaw amendment for possible town meeting in May to allow accessory units on panhandle lots. Now, notwithstanding that, the planning board in its belt and suspenders method sometimes had a condition that the panhandle was, in the condition of approval, that the panhandle was limited to one single-family home. So if those things come up, we'll probably address those on a case-by-case basis because they're individual approvals with conditions, so this one, that's positive and probably not controversial. The board is also looking at the inclusionary housing section of the apartment development bylaw to allow a cash payment in lieu of providing an actual housing unit. Our bylaw requires 1 out of 10 units in an apartment development, 1 out of 10 needs to be affordable. We actually give a bonus for anyone who provides an affordable unit or a one-bedroom to get the density up. But this really hasn't been tested out. We haven't had a development that wasn't regulated through 40B or otherwise of 10 or more units since the bylaw was passed. So we are looking at what is the proper level of cash payment. And the bylaw task force asked the Housing Trust, we're getting out of our silos, Andrea, to opine on what's the right calculation for that formula for that, deriving the cash payment so that a developer does not have to produce the housing unit.
What's the thought process behind that? Because that doesn't provide housing, it provides funding for potential housing, but doesn't provide actual housing.
There may be, well, I agree with you, and there may be situations where it doesn't make sense or it's not appropriate to produce an affordable unit in conjunction with a development project.
Often what I've seen is when there are so few, given the size of the development, the developer would rather, for the financing and all the stuff they do, just give the locality the money toward it. The danger is, and what I've seen is, one, should there be a permission clause so that the town says that's appropriate there versus, no, you're just trying to buy your way out of it. So that's one possibility. And then the other was how much, and that number is reasonable now and will grow in the future and be reasonable in the future. Looking at the amendment language, it did seem very low, a number, and I don't know where they got the number from.
Yeah, the town of Yarmouth has a
Yeah, right, from
an
Yarmouth.
inclusionary
And
requirement.
I don't know how they got to it, but,
I don't know, but the formula, if you haven't seen it, is you take 2.5 times
right.
the median income of a family at 70% median income, a family of 4. So $170,000.
I think Hyannis or Barnstable Town has a new payment, I thought, but I don't know.
I'm not sure about Barnstable, because I thought last I knew theirs was struck down at the court level.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But at any rate, $170,000 is a lot, seems like a lot of money to all of us, but it's not enough to produce a affordable housing unit.
No.
So if a developer wants, we'd much rather have the units, certainly. But if it's appropriate for a developer not to do the units on site, let's make sure that there's a robust escalating number that goes along with this.
Where does that money go?
It would go right to the Affordable Housing Trust
The
Fund,
trust, okay.
for that singular purpose. Yeah.
It seems to me that there should be some criteria for judging whether or not the town would accept a cash payment in lieu of a
Yeah,
housing
they would
unit.
need to be, yeah.
needs
It's
to
not
be.
just wish,
Because
Yeah.
the whole responsibility of putting together a project that allows for the affordable housing to be built, all of that is a big responsibility and costly and requires all this committee work. Why should we not?
Private check.
I think it's more costly for the public sector to produce housing than the private sector anyway.
Yeah, fortunately.
you could turn it around so that if the developer wanted that, they would have to provide the reasons, almost like hardship, why they couldn't just build the unit. So you could turn it around and make the burden of proof on the developer.
Waiver provision kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I would think it should have something like that in
You
it.
still have to come out with criteria, because it has
Right.
to be based on something rational, a public policy basis for giving them such a waiver.
Right, right. Now, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but in Provincetown, they've got the requirement for inclusivity down to 2 units. A project of 2 housing units or more needs to provide cash payment toward the payment in lieu of providing an affordable unit. So, but I think the number, as I saw in the bylaw, was $23,000.
Oh.
It's probably escalated a little bit since it was adopted, but it's much lower.
You're really weighing disincentive, aren't you?
To that point, the planning board talked about the request of the Affordable Housing Committee that I had on my list to consider making this 1 out of 5 units. And they felt that they did not want to have a disincentive to doing any development in town, and that would serve as a disincentive. So at this time, they did not want to go forward with the 1 and 5, keep it at 1 per 10.
10%. 10%.
Yes, yes.
So this proposal, it's been submitted to the trust for consideration, or it's going to be, or is
sort
it
of
still in the working
It's not a
process?
proposal yet.
Okay,
But the planning board wants to pursue it, and they're looking for some guidance from the housing trust as to where that number needs to be, and then they can work out the nuts and bolts of the bylaw.
okay. So they have asked the question of the trust already. It's in the process, or they're,
We asked today, next time they meet.
okay,
Bill, you used to see the
Timely
list I
question.
have at work.
okay.
So, and the third thing was regarding single-family homes in business districts. Our bylaw has I don't know, vestigial quirk that we require 40,000 square feet of land area per dwelling unit townwide. But in the business districts, there was a request that maybe that number needs to be lower because lots are smaller. It's an area where we allow 10 to 14 dwelling units per acre through the special permit apartment development process. Why not allow someone with a small lot to be able to build a single-family home? And the planning board landed on a grandfather clause in which they think it's appropriate not to change the zoning to 20,000 square feet, because that might lead to a subdivision activity and a lack of sort of an eclectic development without approvals of subdivision, single-family homes that we don't regulate. Instead, they chose, it would be better to grandfather in the lots of 20,000 square feet or more that exist as of X day, probably the date of their first hearing. And there are 135 of these lots downtown. Half of them already have a residential use, so there's potential for 65 lots to be converted over to single-family home use. Only 2 of them are vacant. There's virtually no vacant lots
Right.
downtown. So this is a nod to the need for housing, even if it's at the single-family level, because it provides something. We didn't want to make it impossible for that to happen. So I have a feeling that will also go to the town meeting for consideration. We'll be seeking your support if it happens.
All right.
I think that's all I have.
That's all you have. Any other questions for George? Okay. Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, I like zoning. Not many do.
I hate it.
Well, you're welcome to stay for the rest of our agenda.
I'd love to hear you talk about the charge.
Okay. Okay. The next 2 items, actually, the recommendation for the committee discussion, which is listed on the agenda as Fran, and then also the update on the RFP and the selection committee and website are Marcia. And they kind of cross over a little bit, so we'll
Okay.
expect some kind of tag team to go on here. But Fran, we'll start with you under your items and go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. This discussion is come out of the meetings that Andrea, who is in our audience today, has been having with committee chairs or designees on the first Friday of each month. And the requests are to look at how can we committee members work most efficiently, and how can our committees work with skilled people on board, people who've had training, and people who bring to the committee the skills that are needed. And so there are a number of questions that have come out of these meetings, and I wanted to go through them with you so that we could discuss them. And it really fits nicely with where we are right now, because many of them refer to the website, and we have the new website that is up and running, and Marcia has particularly been working on that website for us, so it's germane, and that's why there's both of these agenda items kind of overlap. But anyway, can I go through them one by one? I think we can move forward rather quickly with some of them. The first question is to review the charge and update it if necessary. And you may remember that we spent many, many months reviewing our charge, and I think we voted on the final charge as of
December 20th, 2021.
December 20th, 21? Okay, thank you. So, yes, and our charge is updated, and it is on the webpage, so that knocks off 2 questions there. Then again, make sure the goals are clearly stated on our website. So we have the charge on our website, and then the question is, are our goals on the website? Well, there are long-range and general goals in the charge, but would we say those are the goals that we want to have on our website and the charge is sufficient? Or would we say that we need to come up with, say, 3 or 4 goals that we are more specifically working on now? And I think that's probably a conversation we should have as a future agenda item.
Definitely, yeah.
Because I think there are several things that we're quite actively involved in that would be, to keep our website updated would be important to include those, not the least of which is working on the website. And secondly, working on updating the 2017 housing study. So that's certainly in process as well. And I think one of the conversations that we should probably be having that in conjunction with the trust is the housing needs that we are wanting to respond to. We have in our charge responding to the affordable housing needs as defined by housing that is subsidized and deed restricted. But are there ways that the trust and the committee want to expand that a little bit and consider housing that may be for people who don't necessarily fall under that subsidized level, but who may have a need, or our community may have a need for those people to live here? For example, staffing our businesses or our town committees, our town staffing, and all kinds of things like that. But I think that's a conversation that the trust is having each meeting on their agenda, and that we probably want to have that conversation as well. So those are just some things that come to my mind.
Okay.
But I think that we want to probably have that discussion with Nancy here and.
Right. And you mentioned the 3 clear goals. Maybe what we can do for homework is for all of us to go through the charge, look through it, as you mentioned. There may be specific things in there that we'd want to
Yep.
pull out and use, or there may be something separate from that. So I will mention to Nancy that might be a good idea for next agenda item
Great.
to, have us all come in with our ideas for, each of us with ideas what those 3 goals
Homework, yeah,
might be, yeah.
great. Thirdly, determine the skills that are needed in recruiting new members. What do we think are the skills
Many.
we would need on this committee? We do have one opening.
Yeah, we
We
do.
do need one more member. What do you guys think?
Well, as somebody who came in with no experience at all in affordable housing, I think it would be good if we could find people who have that experience. I mean, there's been the course that we took, and I have read things, and I try to keep up on it, but as Marcia tells us repeatedly, it's very complicated. And it takes a while before you get like, oh, here's the picture here, here's sort of the structure of this, and here are, and just the difference between, you know, capital A affordable and small a affordable, and that missing middle, and, you know, all of that. I think before somebody comes on and can be an effective participant in this, they need more, certainly more than I had when I came on board. I mean, I was glad to be able to like do the minutes so that I could be making some kind of contribution, and it was helpful to do that because, you know, then I had to get the vocabulary, I really had to understand what was going on, and, but, yeah.
So you had an investment in affordable housing, enough to volunteer, and then you came and you were an active member because you took on the role of doing the minutes, and I have to say, I appreciated that.
Well, I mean, I understood that we were headed toward a crisis. I'm not even sure how I knew that, but I got that.
Right.
But I didn't understand the structure of it and all of that. And also, you know, what are the things that can be done?
Right.
You know, are we limited to just working within this capital A affordable, or can we step outside of
Yeah,
that?
right.
And, you know, all of that. So anyway, that would be my contribution to this discussion, like more knowledgeable.
Right. Andrea?
I just want to clarify that these sets of questions that Fran's reviewing went to all committees and boards in the town. And Nancy, you're a perfect, incredible member, powerful member of this committee. So I think it's up to your board to determine, like planning board, there's training involved to be able to do the charge. And I think the town wants to be, to assist in that training. You don't have to know anything coming in the door except a willingness to learn and an affinity for the charge. Separate from when we have boards like architectural review, and we want qualified professionals on those boards, we want the board to say that's a skill set, and we want to be able, if the board tells the select board, then we're going to bake that skill set into the charge, and it'll help us in the selection of candidates. This is a different kind of board, and what this board may be able to tell the select board is that we welcome diversity in our background and thinking, but what we need is a strong training program. And that's a great answer. I know, being a naive planning board member, it took me 3 years and 4 courses in the citizens training to feel even somewhat oriented with the work of the planning board. I just want to clarify that we're trying to discriminate here among committees and how each committee does its work. So don't feel compelled to make things up, but do feel compelled to tell us honestly what's required for you to be effective in your charge.
Appreciate that. I think the training is so important, because I agree with Nancy. You know, when I came on, my interest was piqued by my participation in Habitat for Humanity, but I knew nothing. And the first time I saw the 2017 report and started going through that, I was like, what did I get myself into? And it does take time. It's still learning, you know, all the words and the phrases and the numbers and the, you know, what can we do, what should we do? So I think I very much appreciate your comments about what we could be looking for as a background as far as what we become knowledgeable is with the training.
And that can go on your website. At one point, the planning board, under a different generation of folks, used to kind of require training in order to speak the language. I think it's perfectly acceptable to recommend training during your first tenure or your first year, like go through the housing program at the
Institute,
CDP.
yeah.
You know, you really have great latitude here. What we're trying to do is make your thinking about your work public and then integrate it into the select board's appointment process.
Marcia?
Yeah, one other thought was that the skill set doesn't have to be housing, that's a knowledge base. But it might be, since we're into communication, if you had a communication professional who knew about what messaging is all about, or who knew financial kinds of things, so that could apply. Basically, it's another way of looking at the subject that might be helpful to you.
Good point.
So that's as much skill set as subject knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, and I would add outreach, the ability to advocate and to be a voice, I think is a really powerful thing that we need on this
Yes.
committee.
But you have to know what you're talking about. In case you get a question.
Right.
So I've been on the board for, I guess, a little over a year now. And I almost, it's embarrassing sometimes to admit how little I know. And when I came on the board, I was given a lot of reading material, including the 2017. But I never had any I never did any training you're talking about a CDP training or something. And I think that would be hugely helpful. Reading tons of materials is sort of sensory overload in a way, but maybe a training session or a video or a combination, or being able to sit one-on-one with a committee member and just ask lots of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be helpful if another committee member who is knowledgeable would sit down with you and say, here's the shape of this.
Yeah, and
Here are the acronyms you're gonna hear, here's,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah.
relatedly, I think, and this occurred to me just as I was not long ago reading the Governor Prince report, that it would be helpful as a member of this committee to know these are the things that are really important for you to understand, like
Yes.
acronyms,
Yep.
like, whereas maybe the financing of affordable housing could be interesting, but don't worry about, as I read through that report, I was kind of overwhelmed with the amount of information about funding mechanism and again, I just thought, oh, gosh, what am I contributing to the committee? Because I know, I'm aware of how little I know as the longer so, yeah, but maybe, for your first year or two, these are the really important things to focus on. And maybe after, maybe focus on these things, I'm not sure what the answer is, but, and it is hard to ask questions sometimes, not because this is a formidable group, you're all, everyone's so friendly and welcoming, but sometimes you just kind of write
frame
that
it,
down,
yeah.
I'm gonna look that up in the
look that up,
dictionary or something.
What about the idea of having a mentor for each new member?
I think that would be
I think that'd be super,
terrific, yeah.
really great.
Somebody you could call after a meeting and say,
What were they
about
talking
that.
about?
What was that all
Questions.
about? Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right?
Okay. So that's something we'll need to spend some more time
More
on,
time with.
determining the skills, but we got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah,
certainly.
I ran
Yeah.
a long list.
Good.
Yeah, good
Okay.
stuff.
Let's-
The other question that came up as to whether or not the chair would like, and the chair of the select board and the chair of the committee, whether or not the chair of the committee would like some consultation with the select board chair in the appointing of new members. So sometimes when members come and have expressed an interest in being on a given committee, they're presented their citizen interest form, but the select board, in choosing them and asking questions of them, perhaps haven't communicated with the chair of that committee to know what kinds of skills are needed or what they're looking for and so on and so forth.
Does
So,
that ever happen, Andrea? I mean, it sounds like it's something that should happen, but.
So
is
it's by policy, it's been a discretionary activity. So
Okay.
a past chair, when I was chair of the select board, reached out to me, I mean, when I was chair of the planning
Planning,
board, reached
right.
out to me about my preference about candidates, especially if you have too many candidates for a seat.
Right.
But chairs since that chair have not on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis. And to me, our work is becoming so critical
Mm.
that it seemed a courtesy, especially when there were too
Yeah.
many candidates for the seat, to
Yes.
not be informed.
Right.
It's time consuming. It's
Mhm.
very time consuming for the chair of the select board to reach out to everybody, but I think it's worth it. Because remember, with the current way of reporting, liaisons can't possibly filter accurately everything that's important to every board and committee.
Right.
And so that direct contact, the more we can facilitate it, the better,
Mm.
I think.
Okay.
does every member know the charge? And I think that since we've been working on the charge, we probably do, but I think it merits review
Review of the.
routinely. And Bill, if you do that homework assignment you gave us, that would be
Right.
indeed
Yep.
to review the charge for all of us, which would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another. Would your work be easier and more efficient combining with another board or committee?
Hmm.
Well, certainly we, at times at least, we have met with
Hmm.
these members of the trust, which is
At joint meetings.
helpful,
Yeah.
and because there's so much of an overlap in goals. I don't know if that's a regularly scheduled thing, or whether just as needed.
Yeah, I
as
don't know
needed.
about
As an as
combining.
needed.
I think certainly is efficient, I think, to meet with other committees. I guess the word combining with another committee, I don't know if that almost sounds like you formally formed another committee or something, but.
Right.
So this was
Andrea?
also a historic, George will laugh, we had we had the police chief begging for the, what is it, traffic, pedestrian safety and traffic, or,
Oh.
what were the names of the two
Bike
committees?
and-
Bike
Bike and pedestrian
safety.
advisory and,
Yeah, we just had two committees,
Right.
just
yeah, my husband's on one of them.
Okay.
voted to
There's only
combine.
one now.
Right, and I asked what the new name was, and I got another mouthful, so yeah, it's not working. But anyway, so don't linger too much, your charge is clear and your work is clear. This just,
Okay.
because this went to all
Right.
30-something committees in town.
Okay,
Don't
thank
worry
you. All right, thank you. So that one we won't worry about.
Yeah. So this committee, as Andrea, I've heard her say, birthed the Housing Trust, because that was one of the recommendations that came out of the 2017 study. So we did all the mechanisms that had to happen to get that trust
that happen.
formed.
Yeah.
And the idea, Susan, about the financial stuff, the idea was that group should handle the financial stuff. And so those are the skills you want there. It's not for us to understand all the financial stuff. Our job is more assessment of need, reaching out to the community, things like that.
Okay,
So, yeah,
Right.
that was a good idea.
yeah. And then lastly, do we want to use any of the interactive capacities in the Newtown website to better communicate with the public, like an ask us about option or a monthly newsletter? And maybe we fold that conversation into what Marcia is going to be talking about.
Good segue into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marcia, what do you think?
Okay, I might as well report on what the website activity is. So I've been working with Nancy and Fran on updating the website for the committee, the Affordable Housing Committee. And so I think we're about to be able to do it. Mia has been overloaded lately, and she's been on training. So as soon as she gets back, she and I are going to get together, and we are going to go ahead and restructure the committee's website But the important thing is the relationship to the housing landing page, which I think as Fran and I have worked on, it does make a lot of sense. So what I'm going to suggest, and I need to get back to the trust now, because they have to agree to it, is basically have a landing page, which is the housing, that has various topic areas. It has the documents attached to it, the links attached to it, et cetera. Then you have the committee pages, and so the committee would then have something specific to its existence, charges, membership, et cetera, and then could link to a variety of topics and links off the housing one, or could create new ones that can eventually migrate over to the housing page. So the housing page is sort of the overall, I want to know something about housing, whereas the committee ones is I want to know something about the Affordable Housing Committee or the trust. So I think that structure seems to be workable. So I'm going to use Nancy and Fran, basically Fran's, work with me on it. We're going to try to flesh out a little bit more what the committee site looks like, and then flesh out a little bit more what the landing page looks like. Then I have to go back to the trust and make sure they're okay with that overall format. And I don't see why they would have any problem with it. Part of the issue is the way that it was set up as the committee's website, is that you have documents attached to each of those pages. And so moving one to another is kind of awkward. And so I'm going to work with Mia about how to do it so that the major point on it, and Fran and I've talked a lot about it, is whatever you do, you got to have a mechanism for keeping it up to date. And as I keep telling people, the only thing worse than no website is an out-of-date website, because it's so frustrating to people. So I'm trying to make it such that it's fairly generic information now with links to particular documents, and then we can remove the links or archive documents as we need to. But to the extent that we wanted a living website, either the committees or the housing page, we need to have a way for someone to be looking at it on a regular basis and updating it, which obviously can't be George and me all the time. But, I think I can assume some of that role. Within that, if you have that, some capability for keeping update, then we have sections we're putting in there for recent news, immediate upcoming events, FAQs, topics of interest, all of which can be much more timely stuff. But it does take somebody looking at that and updating it. And then a perfect example, as the Governor Prince Committee finished its work, then we need to go back in and reflect that the work has been finished, here are the new links. Governor Prince Committee no longer exists, so we're going to have to make those changes, and you need to make them on a timely basis. So I think we can, with the present content, create a better structure for the websites, but I think over time, we need a mechanism for keeping it up to date, adding and retiring content as we need. So hopefully by the next meeting, I'll be able to show you that restructured page, which, just to be clear, it is not supposed to be a front-facing page, but because it has links to other content, it's showing up when you do a search, which I wasn't quite ready for. There's still some blank spaces there. So I'll work with me as much as possible to flesh out what I can. What I then am going to generate is a list of content, either changes or additions that need to be done, and then we'll have to deal with who's going to do that work. For example, I'd love you guys to think about those topics of interest. What would be topics of interest in the field of affordable and attainable housing that you would want a complete discussion about, appropriate links, documents, other websites, et cetera, all of which takes work. But it might be that if you have individuals who are interested in delving more into a particular topic, you could write that up and figure out what the appropriate links are. FAQs are another thing. I know Fran has spent a lot of time on glossaries. There's actually a lot of glossaries out there. So I don't think you have to recreate it. You basically can link to a couple of state ones that are fairly thorough, and then maybe add some Orleans-specific ones. But it doesn't necessarily take a lot of work, except to keep examining it and making sure that it's up to date. So I think we can make a lot of progress with current content, add some limited new content, and then have it a much more workable site. I know when I've asked people, and did you ever go to the county's website to find out what's happening in affordable housing. They said, oh, no, I wouldn't go to county's website. So obviously, we have to do something about that.
George, do you have any sense of how other committees are dealing with this issue of how to stay current?
Well, I know that some, talking to Mia, and we can get more examples, some are, actually had their own websites, separate from the towns, or not within a town. So they've been folded in, so they have more active content in their stuff. I think police and fire do a better job on it. So, you know, Mia could probably tell us where there might be some examples of that.
Yeah, sure.
So the issue, though, has been, the police department had the most robust one, because there were 3 staff people assigned to keep the Facebook page updated at all times, and they were sending out active alerts. They've pulled back on that because it's a huge staffing concern. And so there are, both with the community center feasibility study report and the cultural district going on downstairs right now, and the recreation, there's been a request to organize a kind of Office of Community Life or Public Information Officer, and Mia is actually in that training now, specifically about emergency management, but it could be applied to other things. Eventually, a reorganization may happen with the new town manager, where we get, and we leave it up to the town manager by charter, we have to. The select board cannot mandate this, no matter how many committees or boards say, we need the staff to help us with this. It's gonna be a problem that will be, or a recommendation that we would like the new town manager to solve, but budget has to follow. And so, you know, for right now, the ask the question to the thing can be a committee member, but we don't have staff. You can register that there is a need, and we will have to respond to that with the creation of staff. Or you can get creative about, some committees rotate, like clerk's position, or, you know, they nominate somebody if they have a Facebook page. Orleans Cultural District, the Facebook, because it's mandated to have a Facebook page as a part of the agreement of being a cultural district. And as ineffective as that Facebook page is, you are looking at the person who's been posting for the cultural district since 2012. So it takes either a volunteer on the committee, I would love to get rid of that job, but it would take a volunteer on the committee or dedicated staff to address what Marcia's talking about.
Okay. Okay, so you're done.
Okay, move on to the RFP. So I've just shipped over, or actually that was pretty fast. We're getting the housing needs update RFP out. So the schedule as it's now developing is, it's going to be advertised in the Central Register November 7th, and then advertised, I saw somebody told me it's a new advertising place. It's not Cape Codder, it's,
Cape Codder.
somebody told me it's now the Chronicle.
It should be the
But anyway,
Chronicle. Should be the Chronicle, not the Cape Cod.
Okay.
anyway, somebody told me it was new, so anyway.
Or it can be both, right?
At any rate,
Yeah, at any rate, so November 11th, it's supposed to be advertised. Submission deadline is December 12th, giving basically 4 weeks. And then my internal schedule is, once we get that, we have a selection committee, which is Nancy, Ward Gorey from the trust board, George and myself for the selection of the consultant. And Nancy's agreed to it, but she wanted me to bring that to your attention and make sure everybody's all right with it on this committee. And then, so we will probably be reviewing proposals. Well, I'm sort of discounting the holiday season, so I'm thinking mostly in January. And hopefully by, we meet sometime in mid-January, go through the proposals, and then do interviews, assuming we have more than one proposer, and then negotiate that content and have a contract signed by February 1. So that's the time frame. And it's supposed to be a 6-month contract once the contract is signed.
Marcia, could you give me the dates that you said
Sure.
it's going to be advertised the 7th of December?
Set in the Central Register, 7th of November. And
Oh,
then
November, okay.
And then in the meet newspaper, or whatever it is,
Local media.
newspaper, or November 11th. Deadline for submissions is December 12th,
Okay, got it.
and then hopefully contract signed by February 1.
Great. Anything else, Marcia, that you?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything to be brought up or discussed? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Did we approve the minutes?
We approved the minutes with some changes in the misspelling of names,
Okay.
but I'll see you after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. You did a great job. They were great minutes.
They are
Just a
great.
couple little
Okay,
little
I'm learning.
misspellings, that's all right. Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn, or did I hear one or miss
Yeah,
one?
so moved.
Okay, second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you, George. Always
Pleasure.
great. This